Ah.
It costs that much cause it takes me fucking hours. It costs that much cause I don't have superpowers. So you need to pay for my skills cause exposure doesn't pay the bills. It costs that much cause it takes me fucking hours. You need to pay for my skills cause exposure doesn't pay the bills. It costs that much cause it takes me fucking hours.
Like a moth drawn to a flame, we are drawn to Point Pleasant, West Virginia for a tale or tales over 60 years old. It's the Mothman, Indrid Cold, and more tonight on Mundus Ultra.
Well, if there's a thing.
Hey everybody, it's Uncle Warren here. You saw a little bit more of me than I wanted you to see. That's okay. It's all good. Hope everybody's doing well this evening. We're doing a little fun, happy here in the middle of the night. Back in the days, used to be we'd do Secret Show around this time on a midnight on Friday, but now that's the Saturday show. So we're trying this on a Friday night to see what you kids think about that. We're also going to be doing a regular show Sunday night at 6 p.m. Eastern as well. Not quite sure what the topic is going to be there. We may have shot our wad with the old Mothman stuff tonight, but should be a good one. Hold on to your hats if you got them. It says good intro, but I still think it would be better if you said hold on to your Mundus because it's about to get ultra. Interesting. Intriguing. I will take that into consideration, Ed. Thank you for that. Ed always has good ideas. Also, Ed's birthday is Sunday. He's going to be 49 again. So make sure you wish him a happy birthday in the chat. And if you're seeing this in the future, on the replay, it may still be Sunday, so you may still have a chance to let him know that. So it's good to see everybody here. Let me shout out everybody in the chat. Velvet Trance says, are we all here to discuss Mothman's juicy ass? Because I assume we've all seen it. He is pretty buff, not gonna lie. Like I said, Ed is here. Good to see you, almost birthday boy. Rick, good to see you. Gamer is good to see you as always. Miss Velvet Trance, my sweetie, good to see you, lady. I don't get to see you very much. When I do, it's always a pleasure, dear. Who else we got here? Miss Jimmy is here as well. He busted, yeah. I was busted. Hit the wrong damn button. Story of my life. Not when it comes to the ladies, though. I know how to hit the right button. I know how to push buttons, too. Probably not in a good way. So, yeah, we'll just leave it at that. Rick and Brandy and Dingo. Good to see all of y'all. I think I've hit up everybody that's here. That's here. So, let's get to the fun stuff. So we are talking tonight about the Mothman, this cryptid that was first talked about really in 1966 in a small town in West Virginia on the Ohio border called Point Pleasant. It's a very fascinating story. There was a movie in 2002 or 3, I believe, that starred Richard Gere called The Mothman Prophecies. That was based on the 1970, well, I'll say 1970s book by John Keel, who wrote extensively on the events in Point Pleasant. So what happened in Point Pleasant? Well, the most really, what did we get this? You heard tonight from Yona that Mothman has a vajayjay and a dingling. First off, using possibly junior high words for genitalia, and then saying that that Yona, I think Yona smoked too many of the weeds for that to be happening. For him to get that close to actually A, see the Mothman himself or herself, and B, to actually check out its junk. I'm gonna let me pick up the phone here. Sorry, I'm gonna call bullshit on that one. Hello, bullshit. Yeah, it's me. I'm calling you. Anyway, back to the fun. So, we've got a little video here. Let's talk about this. And this is just kind of like a brief breakdown of kind of the it's about 3.5 minutes. We'll kind of stop in the middle, I guess, and see what it's about. So let's check this out. It's kind of like a brief synopsis of what we're talking about tonight. So, yeah.
In southern Ohio and northern West Virginia, the legend of Mothman is as strong as it was 45 years ago. It's become part of the personality of Point Pleasant, where in December of 1967, the Silver Bridge collapsed, killing 46 people. 2 of the dead were never found. But the stories of the creature that came to be known as Mothman began many months earlier.
And this is where all of your Mothman sightings started back in '66, November '66.
Jeff Wamsley gives tours showing people where the legendary 7-foot-tall winged man with glowing red eyes the size of baseballs was spotted at least 100 times between November 1966 through December of 1967. He also runs a Mothman museum. The first witnesses were 2 couples together at a town gathering spot, the power plant, which sounds like a lover's lane of the late 1960s.
As they got up closer, she said, "What is this guy doing standing in the road?" And she said when the headlights hit it, it turned and looked at him. And she said the wings were like angel's wings above its head, way above its head. And she said that's when the wings came out. And they said that's not a man.
They say Mothman chased their car at incredible speeds. The women were said to be hospitalized for shock. The witnesses all described the same thing, a faceless, red-eyed freak who seemed to have a message to tell. But what was this message? Carolyn Marcella.
Faceless, red-eyed freak with a message to tell. That sounds like several drunk people that I grew up with. There's no rim shot. We don't do sound effects on this show.
Runs the local diner. Her sister saw Mothman, but won't do interviews. In fact, most people won't do interviews.
And it flew over top of her, and she looked up, and she said, when I seen them big red eyes, she said, we were out of there. Can't tell you what the rest of it looks like.
A lot of respectable business people, young kids, older people, elderly.
There you go,
but the people that I've talked to, they just said, we're afraid that people would laugh at us and, think that
like
we were
a brick
crazy.
shit
But,
house.
they said, we know what we saw, and some of them said that it was a large bird of some sort. Others said it wasn't a bird.
How can any of this be explained? Critics say these sightings are really misidentified planes. Owls are just plain pranks. This is an area of chemical plants and military ammunition storage. It's an industry town on the Ohio River that didn't have the kind of environmental regulations it has today.
Somebody was up here fishing one day, saw this fluorescent green stuff coming out of the water, sort of like Jed Clampett on the Beverly Hillbillies.
Could it have been some type of mutated bird of 50s and 60s sci-fi fear? Or was Mothman really here to warn the river people? Those sightings came to a terrifying climax when that bridge collapsed, killing 46 people and changing the area forever. The collapse was so extreme, it set federal regulations on bridge construction. And those Mothman sightings, they stopped too. You believe it?
I believe they saw something, yeah. I don't doubt their stories one bit. I mean, what it was, I can't tell you, personally what it was. I know that they saw something that was out of the ordinary.
Something those witnesses and the people of Point Pleasant will never forget.
All right, so there you have the setup there for there's a little bit to unpack there, so let's get to it. So like one of the first sightings was this two couples, these two teen couples, young adults, were around by the TNT plant at the time, this old munitions factory since World War II, where there was lots of the aquifers around the area were polluted from the chemicals coming from the TNT plant. So yeah, Ohio is no stranger to poison water, to say the least. But so anyway, hang on just a second here. Okay, so I have some more video. Well, I have some more information here. What basically a lot of people were saying was that this winged creature that people were seeing, and there was multiple sightings, not just in West Virginia, but we're sticking to this time frame for right now. So there was lots of sightings around the area, but what the Mothman has come to symbolize is not so much a creature of fear itself, but more of a harbinger of things, of bad things to come. So what are some of these harbingers of things to come? Well, one of the main thing that happened in West Virginia was the collapse of the Silver Bridge. Unfortunately, we're going to Wikipedia for this, but I don't think Wikipedia would lie about this. So I think we can trust it for now. So this was a bridge. The Silver Bridge was completed in 1928. It crosses the Ohio River. Its location is Point Pleasant in Mason County, West Virginia. It's called the Silver Bridge because it was painted silver. So nothing exciting about the name. But it did have structural damage to it. The bridge failure was what basically had happened was the bridge collapsed, and I believe 46 people died from the bridge collapse. I think that's what was happening. But what had happened was the bridge, it was due to a defect in a single link known as I-bar 330 on the north of the Ohio subsidiary chain, the first link below the top of the Ohio tower. So a small crack was formed through fretting wear, and basically it broke, and it led to the collapse of the bridge. So, and as the video said, that's where you started getting more federal regulations regarding bridges and road structures of that extent. So that's the boring stuff. That's the tragic stuff, I should say, not the boring stuff. The stories itself, like I said, there was a movie about it in 2002 called The Mothman Prophecies. And they basically go over. It's more of a less is more type movie where you don't really see the creatures so much or any of the other players, but you hear you kind of get the witness ID of what they saw in a tree, a large 6 to 7 foot humanoid figure with a lot of times they said no neck, it's just like all head, giant red eyes, and a huge wingspan of like up to 12 feet. Some people have stated, some of the witnesses have stated. It's crazy because some of the witnesses said that when they actually saw it and they looked into the eyes of this thing, that later on they themselves had what looked like black eyes or like bruising around the eyes. It was it's pretty crazy. Hey, Sam Cedar is king. Hello, good to see you. Anthony Malecki is here too, one of our producers, as is Les Bones. All my producers are here tonight. We got Velvet, we got Les Bones, Anthony. Good to see all y'all. Oh, thanks, Jimmy. We don't host everything together. You know, she has her own show too. Monday through Friday at 1 p.m. Pacific time. It's called What? So be sure to check out Jimmy during the week. Solo when she's at her best. We're together. She's just stoned and I'm just bumbling. So let's see. Hello. There we go. So let's get into this some more, shall we? There we go. So from Southern Living, of course, Southern Living isn't just like food. It's also good tales of what goes on in the South. So the first sighting of the Mothman was actually November 1966. Grave diggers working in a cemetery in Clendenin, West Virginia, spotted a strange man-like figure in the trees above their heads. A few days later, two young couples from Point Pleasant reported a large creature with 10-foot wings whose eyes glowed red chased them while driving near a former military munitions site outside of town. Now, that was the story of the young adults that were out in the country there by the TNT plant, and this thing chased them. They saw it on the side of the road, didn't know what it was, passed it up, saw it again next to a big giant billboard, saw that this thing was huge, and just freaked out. They took off, headed back into Point Pleasant, and this thing followed them. This thing was so huge that its wings were flapping the side of the car, right? So it was like it was hovering above the car, and this car was getting up some high speeds, up to 80, 90 miles per hour, and this thing was still just like chasing it. It could have been a giant stone vampire bat, maybe, Ed. They could have had some stoner Draculas out there. Count Cruncula. Blah, I want to smoke the weeds, blah. Sorry, not very vampire sensitive. So that's what this story is, the two young couples. And they went into town, went to this restaurant, banged on the door, told the restaurant owner what they had seen. Didn't want to go to the police, but the owner saw that the fear in their eyes and said, well, I'm going to take this to the police. Sightings of what area newspapers dubbed the Mothman continued throughout the following year, often leaving witnesses with a deep sense of dread. Many locals believe the Mothman lived in a vacant nuclear power plant outside Point Pleasant, perhaps an escaped product of some secret government experiment. Somebody mentioned MK Ultra earlier, but they were probably already experimenting with genetics back then too. So one theory is that this was like some sort of giant crane that was a mutation from all the chemicals in the water around the TNT plant, that this thing mutated into this giant looking man humanoid thing. Just gross. You know, and that is it a possibility, I guess, but I mean, a lot of these witness accounts who've seen them up close said that this was like a humanoid figure. And I'm sorry, I don't care how fucked up a crane gets, it doesn't look like a dude. All right. So it is it possible? Sure, but I mean, I'm not quite so sure. That's what it was. It was some sort of genetic mutation, with either on purpose or by accident. I would say more on purpose. You've heard of the Montauk Monster and Plum Island. We're gonna do a show about those two places too, Montauk and Plum Island. Plum Island is like a real place. That's where they do a lot of bioengineering. They work on biological weapons. They say they don't, but there's a book called Lab 257 that talks about Plum Island. That's a great one. We'll get into that too. That is a messed up story. You know, talk about poor security and that sort of thing. Okay, so yeah, so the bridge collapsed, and then people do not see the Mothman again in Point Pleasant, which is kind of lends itself to the theory that these things are a harbinger. We're going to talk about other sightings a little bit later in the show. But there's one interesting character that's seldom talked about when it comes to the Mothman legacy, as it were. So in the movie, and I think it talks more about it in the book, but in the movie, there's a scene where Will Patton, he's one of the actors. I can't remember which character he's playing, but I think he's playing the sheriff or something like that. So there's one scene where it's either him or Richard Gere, who's like this. I think he's with the Washington Post or something like that. Is on the phone with this creepy character who calls himself Indrid Cold. Now, Indrid Cold, you may know, is also known as the Smiling Man, also known as the Grinning Man, because of his creepy smile on his face. Everything else about him is somewhat normal, except maybe he said he doesn't really have a nose or ears, so he's kind of alien looking, but he has kind of a dark tan, nice hair, and just like, this shit-eating grin. So let's take a look at what is some of the tales involving Indrid Cold. So this is from Historic Mysteries, and there's that creepy face, kind of look like the Joker. And I wouldn't be surprised if one story stole from the other. I think the Joker is older than the Mothman tales, or at least the Point Pleasant ones. So there's a particular story. This is Woodrow Derenberger. He was a traveling sewing machine salesman. You could tell this is like the 50s or 60s because they have these traveling salesmen that sell vacuum cleaners and stuff like that, door-to-door salesmen. You don't really see too much of them anymore. They got replaced by Jehovah's Witnesses. So on November 2nd, 1966, Derenberger was driving along a hill just outside Parkersburg on Interstate 77. I believe this is an hour outside of Point Pleasant, on his way home. And he stopped on the side of the road because a sewing machine had become dislodged in the back of his vehicle. He went and checked it out. The sewing machine was undamaged, and he resituated it. So, and he gets back in his car and he's about to leave. He's passed by the set of headlights, and they begin to slow down in front of him. So Darren Berger had to stop again. This time he did it. He stopped in the middle of the road, careful not to dislodge any other appliances in this van. Woodrow was driving conservatively and likely not driving anywhere near the speed limit. Despite this, his first thought centered on a patrol car and possibly a sobriety test. So he's thinking this guy is a cop, right? He quickly dismissed this conclusion when he realized that he was not looking at a car at all. Whatever this was, it was shaped much like an old-fashioned kerosene lamp with a central bulge and flared edges. So he was looking at a craft, apparently. A door slid open, a man exited. According to Darren Berger, the man was average in many ways. He had a deep tan and hair that was dark and swept back. But the extraordinarily broad grin on his face was easily the most striking thing about his appearance. As soon as the man exited, he began to head in Darren Berger's way. He noticed that the man was wearing a dark overcoat, and beneath that he wore a metallic-looking uniform that was green and glistened in the light, the limited light. This man's arms were folded, and both sets of knuckles seemed to be nestled within his own armpit. So he's doing a Mary Catherine Gallagher, so he just pulled him out and he smelled him. So a little SNL reference there. Sorry. So the man spoke, and he identified himself as Indrid Cold and said that he came from a place less powerful than the United States. So he was very reassuring and admitted that he was flesh and blood, just like Woodrow, and in no way special or spectacular. Indrid also openly encouraged Woodrow to report the encounter to authorities, and confirmation would follow. So before he returned to his vehicle, Indrid revealed that this would be just the first of several such meetings the pair would have. And sure enough, Darren Berger was contacted on several occasions by Indrid Cold. None of them were violent or anything in nature. And when the thing was, they had this whole conversation, or at least Indrid Cold had this conversation with Darren Berger, but it was telepathic. So he was speaking to him without moving his mouth. So crazy. Like I said, Woodrow received several additional visits from the same man. Sometimes Indrid wasn't alone. Darren Berger revealed that his new friends came from a planet called Lanulos, and that during one visit he was allowed to take a trip there. After the last of these meetings, Woodrow sought out renowned UFO investigator John Keel, who wrote the book, The Mothman Prophecies, in 1975, I believe, and reported events in great detail. Now, this is, you have to really take all of this in at face value, right? I mean, I'm a big a fan of this kind of stuff as the next person, and I would love all of this stuff to be true. But at the same time, we're grown ass people. You know, and we have to take, we have to think about other angles to these stories, right? So, was he an alien? What, did he even exist at all? Were there other accounts of Indrid Cold? I believe there were more encounters. I don't know if anyone, I'm not quite sure who else besides Darren Berger had this encounter. Oh, wait a minute. Well, there was another one here. Let's look at this one. So, several weeks before Darren Berger had his encounter, a pair of boys met a man that scared both of them. The boys, James Yanchilis and Martin Mouse Munoz were walking home along 4th Street in Elizabeth, New Jersey. They reached a corner opposite a local landmark called the Turnpike. This was an elevated area with a high wire fence and a steep incline. So I remember this story. This creeped me the hell out. They reported that behind the fence stood the strangest man they ever saw. Neither had any idea how the man got there, where he came from. The man just stood there and just grinned a big old grin. So, I mean, smiling people are creepy anyway. I don't know if you've seen that movie Smile, that recently came out. Not bad. Could be better. Could have been a lot worse though. But, never underestimate the power of a creepy smile. So, if you're, looking for that significant other, maybe work on your smile a little bit. Maybe not so much, maybe not so toothy as to scare people. So anyway, so these kids, they saw this cat, in New Jersey. But you know, at the same time, a lot of these people were not believed. Nobody, you know, who's going to believe that if there's a 7-foot moth, flying around trying to kill people? It's, or trying to scare them or whatever. It's just, that's just ridiculous. But, you know, 1 or 2 people, yeah, you could probably pull that off. But I mean, several people who saw these things, and Indrid Cold too, you know, I'm just saying, you know, not everybody is a liar, okay? You know, there's only certain things that you can lie about, right? I mean, the Travis Walton case, for example, Fire in the Sky, if you remember that movie, excellent movie, and the story is just as good too. I believe there was 6 people, including Travis Walton. They all took lie detector tests. They told them what they saw, and all of them passed the test. So, very interesting story. What else we got here? Okay, so like I said, there was the grave diggers that had, I think first, well, that was a week later. Let's look at this one here. So, about a week later, on November 12th, 5 men allegedly watched something fly out from some nearby trees while they were digging a grave in a cemetery near Clendenden, West Virginia. So we were talking about this. The stunned men described what they saw as a brown human being that flew out from the trees and glided low over their heads. 3 days later, and about an hour and a half away, that's where the kids in Point Pleasant saw it. Around this TNT area, and you can see here there's a picture of some of these. They called them igloos because they were kind of rounded military. The folks in the military probably know what these things are for, but this was from World War II, and a lot of these still exist in the Point Pleasant area today. They called them igloos, I believe. So there was an additional sighting on November 18th. According to the Williamson Daily News, a Doddridge County, West Virginia man claimed to have seen the creature in a meadow outside of his home. This sighting reportedly took place around 90 minutes before the Point Pleasant sighting. So this thing gets around, and fairly quickly too. Doddridge County appears to be at least one or more likely 2 hours away from Point Pleasant by a car. However, the Point Pleasant couples claim to have witnessed the creature traveling up to 100 miles per hour and easily keeping up with their speeding vehicle. And of course, it's going to fly as the crow flies. So it's not, I don't think the Mothman's going to be taking roads anywhere. I don't see him in the car like, come on, I gotta, I gotta scare the hell out of some people in Point Pleasant. Let's move that bucket of bolts. I don't think that's what happened. I could be wrong. So this is one of the news clippings. Red-eyed creature reported in West Virginia. This is from the UPI, and it talks about some of these sightings that we just talked about. There was another one on November 16th. A 21-year-old woman and her friends walked back to their vehicles from a social call to a friend's house located near the TNT area in Point Pleasant. The woman was carrying her 3-year-old daughter as they paused to discuss some mysterious lights hovering above the trees in the night sky. The woman noticed a large dark figure staring directly in front of her. She described initially noticing what appeared to be the legs of a man, but immediately realized that they were covered with gray feathers and she could not see any feet. That's crazy. No feet. At first, she thought it was a large man in a gray jumpsuit, but upon focusing on the individual, she realized that the 6-foot-tall creature had a neck that looked like it went down and in like a bird. As her friend screamed and ran back to the house, a woman's legs gave out from under her, and dropping her young daughter, she fell hard onto the toddler. The woman was finally able to regain her composure, collect her daughter, and run for the house after hearing what she interpreted to be the flapping of enormous wings overhead, as though the creature had flown away. Yeah. And that is the Silver, I believe that's the Silver Bridge. Yes, that was that's the collapse of the Silver Bridge. There's another clipping here. Like I said, the sightings of Mothman abruptly stopped after the Silver Bridge collapse, which kind of lends it to the theory that this was more of a harbinger of doom. And some of these other stories we'll talk about here shortly. It kind of helps that bear fruit. So there's been other sightings, like I said, on September 10th, 1978 in Freiburg, Germany. Approximately 21 miners, these are people who work in a mine, these are not underage people, were blocked from entering their job site by a creature with red glowing eyes on its chest, with huge dark wings on its back, and the body of a man. The workers fled from the creature as it unfurled its wings and shrieked. They discovered later that the mine had collapsed during the same workday, and if the men had been working, they would have all either been killed or trapped. Interesting. So maybe this thing was just trying to scare people away from tragedy. Who knows? There were a rash of Mothman sightings at Chernobyl before the nuclear disaster. At least 4 people claimed to see a winged creature over the site of the catastrophe before the failure. There were also claims that the first responders reported sightings of a winged creature circling in and out of the black smoke in the hours after the disaster. However, these reports remain largely unverifiable, as the supposed witnesses of which were either killed in the explosion or died subsequently as a result of radiation exposure. The creature became known as the Black Bird of Chernobyl. So you may have heard of that story. I believe one of the helicopter pilots who was trying to dump sand and other chemicals onto the open pit there, I believe he claimed to have seen a creature flying in and out of the smoke that was going up. So interesting time. So like I said, John Keel would go on to write about the happenings at Point Pleasant. But there was also all kinds of crazy other stuff going on. Even after the bridge collapse, there was mysterious phone calls, paranormal activity, unidentifiable lights in the sky, and there was unidentifiable lights in the sky during the summer too. I was looking up there was a lot of UFO sightings in Ohio that year, leading up to November when they started seeing the Mothman. So, and another thing that they were seeing, some of the people were seeing around town were the MIBs, the men in black, wearing their fedoras and their fancy black suits, black suit, black tie, white shirt. It's like the Blues Brothers, only way scarier. Uh, so one of the reporters in the area, I believe that worked with John Keel on the book, uh, was a local reporter named Mary Heyer, who she'd have several interactions with what Keel would later popularize in his book as the more baffling Men in Black types. An associate of John Keel's, Mary was well known for her extensive coverage of Mothman sightings in the newspaper, the Athens Messenger. She was also the acting manager at their sister office on the 6th Street in downtown Point Pleasant. And this is Mary right here. In January 1967, Mary was visited in her office by an odd man with thick glasses and long black hair that was cut like a bowl haircut. He kept asking about the lights in the sky that she had reported about previously, even though most other news representatives and visitors primarily had questions about the Silver Bridge collapse or the Mothman. Mary was very struck by his voice, which was low and hesitating. She felt as though he had a speech impediment, but could not place exactly why she felt that way. The man also kept getting closer and closer to her, and she noticed that he seemed to stare at her without blinking. Creepy. After their interaction was interrupted by a phone call, which Mary happily had to take, the man began to intensely study a ballpoint pen on Mary's desk as if he had never seen a pen before. He then laughed loudly and ran out of the building, taking the pen with them. Les Bones says Men in Black are real, goddammit. Yeah, apparently they're pen thieves. Maybe that's why at the bank, when you go up to the little desk there to fill out your stuff, the pens are all on chains, because the Men in Black kept coming in and stealing the pens. So that's their superpower, is they steal all the earthly pens and take them back to their planet and go, look, click, 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 click. Ooh, I can't stop. It's addictive. So the same night, a man would visit the homes of other residents. He fit the same exact description as the man at Mary's office. He claimed to be a reporter from Cambridge, Ohio, which was just a few miles away from Point Pleasant. But the man later reportedly inadvertently admitted that he did not know where Columbus, Ohio was. Oops! Word to scammers out there, if you say you're from someplace, don't admit that you don't know where that place is. I'm not saying that people should be shady. I'm just saying if you are going to be shady, be smart. At least know where you came from. So most of the people he visited that night had witnessed mysterious lights in the sky, and all of them were very uncomfortable in the man's presence. Yet another, or perhaps the same odd man, will also visit Mary's niece, Connie Carpenter. According to John Keel's book, the man who identified himself as Jack Brown told Connie that he was a friend of both Mary Heyer and John Keel. He initially asked if he could talk to her about a separate experience in which she had reported seeing the Mothman. Connie politely let him in, but quickly felt as though all his questions were geared specifically towards the reporters. At one point, the men asked, "What do you think what would Mary Heyer do if someone told her to stop writing about UFOs?" And Connie quickly retorted, she'd probably tell them to drop dead. Or if it was me, I would say, go fuck yourself. Connie thought most of his other questions seemed stupid or even unintelligible. Connie, her husband, and her brother all thought that the man's strange demeanor was disturbing, but the man was also odd physically. They all noticed that the man had unusually long fingers. Hey, ladies. And that there was something very peculiar about his ears. They couldn't say exactly what, but there was something. And this continued into 67, where Connie was walking to school as usual when a large black Buick pulled up beside her. She described the driver as a suntanned, clean-cut man who was around 25 years old. He gestured for her to come over to the car, and he opened the door. She initially assumed he needed directions, but upon Connie's approach to the car, the man grabbed her, ripping her blouse in the process, and tried to pull her in the car. She, however, fought back and was able to run away, thank goodness. Days later, Connie received a note reading, "Be careful, girl, I can get you yet," which she insisted was from the man that had tried to abduct her. There were reports of residents of these odd men all over town. Common details of the men in black in Point Pleasant during this span of time included: they were seen driving seemingly brand new but older models of black vehicles. The cars were usually Cadillacs, Buicks, and Lincolns that were at least 20 to 30 years old, yet in mint condition. They were often described as suntanned or olive skin, much like Indrid Cold. He was described that way, as suntanned, with black, if any, hair. So they either had like great hair or they had no hair at all. No in between. No bedheads for the men in black. The men usually appeared to be foreign or had dark features and were reported as displaying movements that sometimes appeared to have been robotic in nature or as moving in a mechanical fashion. The men in black in Point Pleasant also did not seem to know how to eat food properly. On one occasion, diners witnessed a man in a local restaurant who did not know how to use a knife or fork. The man made the same kind of rambling, incoherent conversation as other purported men in black, but he also casually mentioned being from another world, which the waitress thought was a corny pickup line. During a different encounter, a men in black type proceeded to fold a piece of Jell-O in a napkin and place it in his pocket while he attempted to interview a UFO witness. So these men in black, these are some weirdos. Except for the one that tried to grab the girl and drag her into the car. I mean, they seemed like they were harmless, but just very creepy, very odd people. Now, you can say that about government people. People who work for the government themselves, they're not exactly they're not exactly sunshine and roses. They do that for a reason. And they kind of have to be cold and kind of have to be antisocial for the kind of work that they do. But that being said, somebody who doesn't know where they came from, they said they were from Columbus, Ohio. They're like, "Where's Columbus, Ohio?" I don't know. That's just some shit I heard. Yes, Ed, the Men in Black on the TV. If you haven't seen that show, Fringe, binge The Fringe. If you're into sci-fi, it's really good stuff. Alternate universes, all kind of fringe science and stuff. And it does have the Men in Black in there. I won't spoil it for you, but they have a pretty interesting storyline as well. So, like I said, there were other places around the world that the Mothman has been seen. So, there was one in Chicago as recently as 2019. A truck driver who stopped at O'Hare International Airport in Chicago claimed he spotted a person with wings around 7 feet tall standing by a fence while he took a smoke break at about 6:30 p.m. Wonder what he was smoking them weeds. He reported his sighting to UFO Clearinghouse, an online source for odd encounters that describes itself as a portal for the truth. According to the investigator who took the report, the truck driver said the creature had a wingspan of approximately 6 feet. And looked like a demon or a goblin and was solid black. The witness mentioned the creature may have had its back to him and that it was walking with a gait like a bird. He claimed it was flapping its wings as it walked towards a large field that is by the airport runways and disappeared into the night. So, and the witness himself thought that he was in the presence of a demon. Yes. So, yeah, and what else are you going to call it? Like, it's especially the further back in time, like the people have been seeing creatures like these for millennia, right? And what are they going to think? I mean, you're talking about religious based people. Of course, at first, if they see something that looks evil, they're going to think it's a demon. So, interesting stuff there. Let's see. What else was on here? So, that was the couples. That was Germany. There's another one here. Now, these are a little out there. Like I said, this is, the subject itself is pretty out there. All these subjects themselves are going to be out there, but suspend your disbelief, have some fun, and yeah. So the Mothman may have tried to warn people of the Fukushima disaster in Japan. Marcus Pouls, an American visiting Japan, was out with a friend near the Fukushima plant when suddenly they heard a loud whooshing sound and a terrible screeching. As they looked back towards the plant, they saw a figure Pouls described as large and black from the distance I was at. It looked to be sitting on top of one of the squared-shaped buildings. It sat there about 5 seconds, then it unfurled a large set of what I can only describe as large black wings. The creature took flight, circling the plant a few times before coming closer to them. That's when I noticed the two large red eyes. They seemed to glow from within, and with a blood-red hue, they were unblinking in the 3 to 4 seconds we saw them. We knew they were looking straight at us. We knew this creature knew we could see it, and it made no attempt to disguise itself. He describes an immense feeling of dread that washed over him. The creature vanished as quickly as it had appeared. It wasn't until Pouls was back home in America, hearing the news on CNN about the devastation of the Japanese earthquake and the explosions at the very same nuclear power plant where he had witnessed the creature, that he realized he may have seen the infamous harbinger of disaster known as the Mothman. Yes, so exactly, Rick. Angel of death, warning of disasters. Here's the one that I had to side eye a little bit because I was like, really? But okay, so the Mothman was apparently hanging around the Twin Towers the week of the 9/11 attacks. So during the days leading up to the terrorist attacks on September 11th, several people reported sightings of a black-winged creature flying near the Twin Towers. During the attack, as the second plane hit, eyewitnesses reported a creature flying parallel to the plane. Now, there's been several videos of these planes. Now, say what you want. You could say they were doctored. You could say that wasn't a real plane, or you could say whatever you want. I'm not here to dispute any of that. But I'm just telling you what I saw from the videos I saw. I didn't see any Mothman in those videos when the planes hit the towers. I'm just saying. I'm not saying. I'm just saying. Could have been there, sure. Who knows? So yeah, and there's Chernobyl. And there was another bridge collapse. This was in 2007. The Mothman was spotted at yet another bridge collapse. The I-35 West Bridge in Minneapolis, Minnesota, was opened for traffic in 1967, the same year the Silver Bridge collapsed. Interesting. Then on August 1st, 2007, after a month of Mothman sightings, the I-35 West Bridge collapsed during rush hour, taking the lives of 13 people with it and injuring 145 more. I remember that. That was like my first foray into why the hell aren't we fixing our infrastructure within the United States? I know it's a political thing. I'm just saying we need to be fixing these bridges and the railways. We totally need to revamp that kind of stuff. I'm just saying. Look, if the Mothman's trying to tell us that shit's bad, we should probably listen to the Mothman. Okay? I'm not saying, I'm just saying, if he's showing up at these places, we should probably take heed. So, but reports of the Mothman around there preceded the collapse by only a month. Many claim to see the humanoid creature flapping its massive wings in the surrounding area and at the bridge itself. An Illinois woman witnessed the cryptid while driving just outside of Stewartville, Minnesota on June 27th, called paranormal radio show host George Norrie on Coast to Coast AM and described the creature as having a huge wing about the width of a Ford. Exactly. Where is that money going? It sure as hell ain't going into the infrastructure, that's for sure. Unless the infrastructure is somebody's pocket. Why has Sam not talked about the Mothman? He's too busy talking about his crush, Jimmy Dore. He loves talking about Jimmy Dore. On this one here. So the West Virginia man claims his dog was taken by the Mothman. So on November 13th, in Salem West, Virginia, Merle Partridge. I love that name, Merle. Merle is such a great name. Merle Haggard. Merle from The Walking Dead. It's just a great name. Heard a loud noise outside of his home 90 miles from Point Pleasant. During an interview in Eyes of the Mothman, he recalled his television making a high-pitched whining sound and his dog barking wildly. Yes, you're quite welcome, Sam. After going outside to investigate, Partridge was startled by two glowing red eyes that belonged to no animal he'd ever seen before. He also described eerie flashing red lights that seemed to be dancing around. His hunting dog took off after the creature, and that was the last he ever saw of either. He went out to search for his dog with friends the next day, but the dog was never seen again. Yes. So, well, okay, gamer, just so you know, these first few weeks, people get we get the mods, right? You get the mods, you get the mods. But after that, probably not so much. So it's good that you get in early. So anyway, one thing I should talk about is this area cursed? And it quite well be cursed because of an old Native American tribe chief of the Shawnee Nation, Cornstalk. I don't know if you've ever heard of the curse of Cornstalk. Let's talk about that real quick. So, the curse of Cornstalk. This is from from the West Virginia woman, her WordPress. So who was Cornstalk? Cornstalk was one of the most powerful chiefs of the Shawnee Nation, feared and respected among his people. I need Yona for this. K2Gwa, roughly translated to Cornstalk, adamantly opposed European settlement west of the Ohio River during his youth. Later in life, however, he became an advocate for peace. There's the Cornstalk statue there. Cornstalk was not happy about the rapidly approaching European population. He eagerly worked with the tribes of the area to halt what he considered an invasion. Much of his work came up empty. The Europeans were coming no matter what he did. After the Treaty of Fort Stanwix, settlers and land speculators began moving into the land along the Ohio River. The Shawnees had not been present at any treaty negotiations and were furious at the outcome. This was Cornstalk's territory. He attempted to block any further invasion and the Battle of Point Pleasant erupted. With assistance from the Mingo tribe, Cornstalk and his tribe furiously fought the Virginia militia, but victory was not in the cards. He retreated, and after the battle, Cornstalk's power waned, and he reluctantly accepted the treaty. However, he maintained a powerful presence that impressed American militia, and Colonel Benjamin Wilson said of Cornstalk's speech to Lord Dunmore of Camp Charlotte in 1774, "I have heard the first orators in Virginia, Patrick Henry and Richard Henry Lee, but never have I heard one whose powers of delivery surpassed those of Cornstalk on that occasion. I'm assuming that's how we talk, like Foghorn Leghorn. That's why I assumed all those cats from the 1700s sounded like. So, realizing he was better off remaining neutral, Cornstalk tried to keep the peace during the Revolutionary War. He represented the Shawnee tribe at Fort Pitt in 1775 and 76, signing the first ever treaty between the U.S. and Shawnee. Despite a treaty, many Shawnee hoped to use British forces to reclaim their lands. A band of militia tribes led by Blue Jacket effectively divided the Shawnee. Okay, so this is what went down. So, determined to keep the peace, Cornstalk, along with Red Hawk and the Delaware tribe, led a diplomatic mission to Fort Randolph on November 7th, 1777. A lot of sevens. You'd figure that would be lucky. Captain Arbuckle, the fort's commander, took the leaders hostage, thinking that they could fend off the other tribes if they knew Cornstalk had been captured. But here's where the story gets a little strange. Despite being hostages, the leaders were treated well. They were given comfort quarters, good food, and other luxuries. Cornstalk was said to even help his captors by plotting maps along the Ohio River. This led some to believe that his hostage status may have been voluntary. Yes, definitely lots of sevens. On November 9th, Cornstalk's son, Elena Pisco, came to visit his father but was detained. The next day, gunfire was heard near the Kanawha River. When Arbuckle's men went to investigate, they discovered that 2 soldiers who had been in the stockade had escaped. Ambushed by a group of Native Americans, only one escaped, and the other was killed. When Arbuckle's men returned the body to the fort, the other soldiers became enraged and broke into Cornstalk's quarters, determined to execute him. All right, here we go. This is where the curse comes in. Surprised by the attack, Cornstalk rose to his defense. The soldiers, despite their intent, said they had never seen such bravery, causing them to stop in their tracks, if only momentarily. It was said that Cornstalk was shot 8 times, and these were 1700s bullets. These are like big, American Revolutionary, like, balls of metal. Or it could have been buckshot. I don't know. I don't really know how that shit works. Before falling. Before his death, however, it was said that he spoke this curse. I was the borderman's friend. Many times I have saved him and his people from harm. I never warred with you, but only to protect our wigwams and lands. I refused to join your pale-face enemies with the redcoats. I came to the fort as your friend, and you murdered me. You have murdered by my side my young son. For this, may the curse of the Great Spirit rest upon this land. May it be blighted by nature. May it even be blighted in its hopes. May the strength of the peoples be paralyzed by the stain of our blood. Cornstalk was buried overlooking the junction of the Ohio and Kanawha rivers. His body remained there until 1840, when his bones were moved to the Mason County Courthouse. A monument was erected to him in 1899, and in the 50s, a new courthouse was built, and Cornstalk's remains were placed in an aluminum box and reinterred in a corner of town's Tuende Way Park. So that's the final resting place of Cornstalk there. So since Cornstalk's death, there was a series of disasters that fell upon Point Pleasant area. One of the most devastating was the collapse of the Silver Bridge. So yeah, so not exactly a charmed place to live is Point Pleasant. There were other disasters and tragedies there. The next year, the worst coal mining disaster in American history happened there, where 310 miners were killed. In June of 44, there was a tornado that killed 150 people. In 68, 35 people died when a Piedmont Airlines plane crashed. In 1970, another plane crashed, this one killing 75 people. In 76, the Mason County Jail explosion. In 78, the freight train derailment spilling thousands of gallons of toxic chemicals and polluting Point Pleasant's water supply. Sound familiar? And in 78, 51 men were killed in a construction accident. So maybe this place was cursed so much that the Mothman had to show up and say, hey, y'all know this place is cursed. I know this place is cursed. Y'all see me here. Shit's going down. Can't really tell you, but just know some shit's going down. Handle your business. That's what the Mothman was saying. So these tales that surround the Mothman are highly interesting if you're really into that sort of thing. For all this stuff to be going on in such a limited amount of time too is what's fascinating about this, right? You had the Mothman sightings in late 66. Earlier that summer they were seeing lights in the sky. They didn't know what they were. Then the appearance of Indrid Cold in the area. The presence of the Men in Black intimidating local news reporters, and then culminating with the Silver Bridge collapse and other oddities that were happening around that time. So was the TNT plant responsible for creating the Mothman? Who knows, right? As I tell everybody, this is just, I'm a fan of this stuff just like the rest of you guys are. I'm not an expert on any of this. I can only go down the rabbit hole as far as you guys go, and to try and talk about this information. And like I said, I've been fascinated with this story for over 20 years, probably since I saw that movie, The Mothman Prophecies. And when I watched that movie, I thought, I had this creeping feeling like this can't be the whole story, right? What's this deal with Indrid Cold? Why do we see why do we see the grinning man or the smiling man in more places? New Jersey, granted, is not that far away from West Virginia, but it ain't close. So you can't really say it's like a neighboring thing that happened. And there's been tales of the smiling man, grinning man around the world. Ancient cultures have talked about seeing this person, usually tall, slender, giant teeth, creepy smile, just not very, kind of looked human, but didn't act human at all, using, telepathy and whatnot. I just think it's, yeah, the phone call scene in the motel was the best scene in that movie. It gave me chills. But can you imagine if, like I said, if the story is real, can you imagine if you're like this guy, who is it, the salesman, the Woodrow Derenberger? I think he sold sewing machines. Is that right? Just imagine you're driving down a road at night, right? It's late, sun just went down, it's dark, and you're out in the middle of nowhere, right? All you see is the road ahead of you, maybe some trees on the side. And then all of a sudden, you see this giant humanoid looking figure with two giant red eyes staring right at you. I'm no mathematician, but I can pretty much guesstimate the amount of poop that would come out of me and into my pants if I saw something like that. So, but finally, there is you can check out all this stuff. If you, I want to go to Point Pleasant. I want to go down there and check out the museum that they have down here, and we'll give them a shameless plug here. So this is the Mothman Museum. You could go to mothmanmuseum.com and find all this information. So, and it basically has a history of all the things that went down. Is it a tourist trap? Is it a kind of a grift to get people's money? Probably. But, you know, it's a small town. And if you're willing to go all the way to West Virginia to, hey, shake and bacon, better late than never, brother. Yeah, if you're willing to go all the way to West Virginia, you might as well check it out. Throw them a couple bones, you know, help out the area. So their hours are 10 to 5, Monday through Thursday, 10 to 6 on Friday and Saturday, and noon to 5 on Sundays. It's fairly cheap price to get in, about $5 for adults, $2 for kids. And, you know, pick yourself up a Mothman t-shirt. Why not? Help out the local economy. That's what I'm talking about. And they're going to have a Mothman escape room too. That's pretty cool. All right. So anyway, is there more to tell about this story? Probably. If we get more information, maybe we'll do a sequel to this. Yeah, Gamer, that's the museum for the Mothman in Point Pleasant. So with this, I show up like the Kool-Aid guy. You don't expect him. He shows up late and he makes a mess, but at least he showed up. Well, we could have done without the hole in the wall Kool-Aid. That's usually frowned upon. Interior structural damage is not a good thing, unless you're demolishing the building. But, you know, that's where Kool-Aid would come in great. Oh, yeah, and you just bust through the walls and just knock the whole thing down and save yourself a ton of money. Just invest it in Kool-Aid and fill them up. So anyway, we could talk about Kool-Aid all night. But we can, we'll let this set for now. We'll try to be back on Sunday night at 6 p.m. Eastern at our regular time. We had a pretty good turnout for tonight. I appreciate everybody showing up for this. This is our 3rd episode on our brand new channel, Mundus Ultra. Tomorrow night on the Extra Bullet channel, and Rockfin. We're on Rockfin tonight too as well, so don't see anybody over on Rockfin, but if you're watching, hello Rockfin people. Tomorrow night at midnight Eastern, Miss Jimmy Sunderland will be joining me again for the secret show, and we'll have lots of little treats for you, but we'll definitely have plenty of good conversation as always, and we appreciate you guys in the chat that watch that show to be a part of the conversation as well. That's what makes the night so much fun, and that's what makes these nights fun too. I appreciate everybody with their input tonight. Yes, that would be a good idea. I would love to see that. Jimmy and Velvet, we should do a special show. Please do. Brandy, make those dreams come true. Ain't nothing better than seeing hot ladies on the magic picture box. I'm going to tell you that right now, y'all. So yeah, we got that going on tomorrow night. Maybe throw some gaming into the mix. I did a 4.5-hour stream today, starting a No Man's Sky run. I started from the beginning with lots of it, just everything where you got to start with nothing. You gotta go find your ship and all that good stuff. Nice little tutorial. Some of my pals showed up for that. That was nice. I appreciate y'all showing up for that. So we're trying to make these shows entertaining for you and interesting. And if you have any ideas that you want to you know, like as show ideas or any kind of story ideas, that kind of thing, hit up my link tree here, Linktree Extra Bulla. You'll find contact information there, my email, There's also donation links in there as well. If you want to throw me a few bucks, I can always use some extra cheddar. And yes, Ed, you are correct. We know you have a choice when streaming your Mundus. And thank you for flying with Mundus Ultra. We're better than Southwest, at least. At least that's what Yelp tells us. So, but yeah, so tomorrow night we will be on Extra Bulla, on the Rockfin, and probably other channels too. Join me and Jimmy. We always have a good time. I'm looking forward to that. Always look forward to our Saturday nights together with the fam. Yeah. Other than that, if you want to, you can email me at mundusultra@gmail.com. Send me your story ideas, or maybe even if it's just a personal story that you want to share it with us, and maybe we'll have a viewer night where it's like you share with us your stories. So I love each and every one of y'all. I wish you nothing but goodness and prosperity. Don't close your mind. Keep your mind open. You never know what's out there in the world beyond. So take care, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow night on Extra Bulla, and we'll probably see you Sunday night right back here at 6 p.m. Peace out.